Like what I told you guys this just now, right? Haitian parents be ridiculous. Okay, Haitian parents be absolutely ridiculous, man. There's some things that they do. There's some things that they do. It's like I don't understand why they do it, right? That's why when you're looking at certain like Haitian Instagram, most of them is dedicated to how ridiculous they are, right? They be doing some things. I'm like, man, why are you doing this nonsense, right? Some of them are like borderline neurotic, right? Some of them, right? And I'm gonna do a review of a film. The film is called Jalou, right? It's called Jalou. And it's by this comedian named TonTon Dezerab, right? So Jalou is about this father. Remember before I spoke to you guys about I Love You Anne? The father did not want Anne to be with Don Cado because he thought Don Cado was a vagabond, right? And because Don Cado had dreadlocks. But this upcoming film I'm gonna talk to you guys about is called Jalou, right? And I'm gonna give you a full synopsis of Jalou. Okay, so Jalou, I'm gonna give you a brief. Okay. So Jalou is about this father, and the father is strict, right? So remember when I told you about I Love You and how the father, he didn't want the daughter to be with the guy because he thought the guy was like a vagabond because of his hair, and he kept unfairly judging the guy, right? But Jalou, if I Love You Anne was like ridiculous, Jalou is psychotic, right? The father is neurotic, right? He is neurotic and he is crazy, right? So I'm just gonna give you a brief synopsis and then I'm gonna do a full review for you guys, right? So Jalou features this a comedian named TonTon Dezerab, right? TonTon Dezerab he's like Jessie Fry, he's like Tonton Bichat, and that he's a old wait Jessie Fry is actually old, but Tonton Bichat and TonTon Dezerab, they're not really old. They're young people playing old characters, right? And the type of characters that they're playing is something called habitant, right? Habitant is usually like a hick, like an old guy. He zeb. He grows potatoes, like a hick, like a farmer, right? And usually they'll have a daughter or a son, and the daughter is embarrassed by how overzealous and how they just want to control every aspect of the daughter's life, right? So Jalou, I'm gonna give you a brief synopsis, right? So Jalou is TonTon Dezerab. It has Kenny from Zenglen. He's like Zenglen. He's that guy from Zenglen. He's like a very popular artist from the group Zenglen, and he plays the boyfriend of Vierge Marie, right? Vierge Marie. And so TonTon Dezerab has a daughter. Her name is Vierge Marie, right? The translation of Vierge Marie means Virgin Mary, right? So her name is actually Mary, but he keeps calling her Vierge Marie, right? So that tells you he wants her to stay a virgin for the rest of her life, right? So Jalou, and it features it's like it's in the woods, right? It's in the countryside, it's in the woods, and the plot is ridiculous, right? So if you get like offended easily by like things, stereotypes, I wouldn't recommend you watch this movie, because it's so much stereotypes in the movie, right? Number one, they have this gay guy in the woods, and his name is Geraldine, right? So Kenny, the boyfriend of Vierge Marie, is passing through the woods, and all the time Geraldine is like, oh, mwen gen banan pese, mwen gen bagay, and he's just like, he's playing stuff, most of the stuff that, because it's a comic movie, it's offensive, right? So if you easily get offended, you probably shouldn't watch this movie, right? You shouldn't watch it. So then the whole basis of Papa Jalou is, it means Papa Jalou means a father. He's jealous, right? Or he's overzealous, and especially it's usually geared towards the daughter, right? He's overprotective and he's strict. That's what the term means. So it takes place in the woods, and it's with the daughter of Vierge Marie, Virgin Mary, and the dad doesn't want to hear that and I think she's like in her 19 or 20, something like that. She's young. But he doesn't want to hear that she's becoming a grown woman, that she might have a boyfriend, that she might eventually want to marry, right? Because he wants to keep her on lockdown, right? He wants to keep her his little girl. But the thing is, he needs to get with the times, just like what I told you with TonTon Dezerab, right? Okay, so then he sees Vierge Marie. She comes into his house, which is in the woods, and what's funny about it is that he keeps her, he has a lock for the little house in the woods, right? And the house is in the middle of nowhere. So then there's a part of it where Kenny, the boyfriend from the city, comes to see Vierge Marie, right? And Kenny, but because of how strict the dad is, she can't tell the dad that's her boyfriend, right? Because she has to say, oh, that's my friend. So then so it's like, Dad, this is my friend. So the dad leaves them outside, and while Kenny and her are talking, they start looking at each other, and the dad's like, man, what's going on here? So then the dad comes out, and he's like, oh, is there something more going on here? And he's like, oh, Dad, I haven't been, something to the effect like, this is actually the guy I'm interested in. So then there's a part in the film where when he learns that's actually her boyfriend from the city, he's like, oh, you're her boyfriend, right? You're her boyfriend, right? So he sits her next to him, next to the guy, and then while they're talking, he stays there, and he's like, oh, you guys have 5 minutes to talk. And all the time while he has the 5 minutes to talk, he's giving them 5 minutes to talk, they're just waiting, and they're waiting, and he's like, Dad, can we have a moment alone? He's like, no, you guys said you need to talk, so let me hear what you have to say, because he's monitoring the girl like he's like the CIA, right? And he's like right in her face. So then all the while he's taking his machete, and he's just he's sharpening the machetes, right? And he's like, oh, I give you 5 minutes to talk, right? And he's like, 5 minutes to talk, 5 minutes to talk, and they're just looking at each other because it's uncomfortable, right? Because he's just like, he's looking at them at the hawk, he's like, and he's just sharpening his tools, right? And he's like, since it seems like the guy is done finished talking to, he has nothing to say, libebe, then he needs to get to moving, right? So then he's like, but Dad, why? He's like, Dad, you're not giving us time to talk. Why are you standing there? And then when 5 minutes up, he's like, look, soti deo. He says go, right? And he puts the guy out. And then one more instance is it's arranged when the dad is not there for the girl to meet the boyfriend from the city, right? So the boyfriend comes by, and when the dad's not looking, because he went on an errand, I believe. He went on an errand, and now they're gazing, they're holding, they're kissing, and it's like, oh, I've missed you for so long. I haven't seen you, right? So the dad sees Vierge Marie. For some reason he comes and he sees them, right? So the dad he does this thing where he runs after the guy. So the whole movie is based on the dad being jealous and strict, and he's just overzealous. He wants to keep a tight fist on the daughter, right? Because that's, to him, that's his precious daughter. She can't do no wrong, and she's supposed to be like his innocent little girl. But the only thing is, she's like well in her 20s, I believe, and she is not a little girl like most fathers want to believe of their children. So the whole concept of the movie is to trust your children more, so that trust your children and not be so strict, right? So I'm gonna recount the part where the same part I just spoke to you guys about, right? So there's a part when Kenny comes from the city, the boyfriend from the city. He comes from the city and he wants to see Vierge Marie, right? So then the father sees, okay, he sees Gombaga Kila, he sees there's something there, and he's like, "Mais est-ce que ça c'est ménage?" And then she's like, "Yeah," right? So he's like, and then Shita. So he tells the guy to come sit, right? And he's like, "Mba nou 5 minutes pour nous parler." And he's like, "Well, I'll give you guys 5 minutes to speak," right? And then so they're sitting, and all the while, pendant toute les parler, but like they're sitting in front of next to each other. He's like talk, and he's just sharpening the machete, and he's like, or I think he's either sharpening the machete or he's smoking a tobacco pipe, right? And he's like, "I give you 5 minutes to talk. I give you guys 5 minutes to talk." So then he's just like watching them like a hawk, and the guy's like, the daughter's like, "Dad, could you just give us and he's like, "No, the person wants to speak, let him talk," right? And he's just watching them like a hawk. So they're like, okay, Dad, and so there's a point going there, like après 5 minutes la fin passé, dit comme ça 5 minutes passé, et bien Kenny bébé la gagne pour dire, et bien allez Kenny, right? He says by la fini, right? So then it's that point where he says, "Look, it looks like Kenny doesn't have anything he want to say, and our cat has Kenny's tongue. So since Kenny cannot say nothing to my daughter in front of my face, Kenny can go," right? And so the girl's like, please Dad, just let us give us some time together, right? So he's like, "No, Vierge Marie, flank it under," like he tells her to get inside, and he locks the door, right? And all I have to say for this movie is, it's ridiculous, right? The movie is so funny, right? It is so funny, and it's funny because it's a concept most people could relate to, like a dad that's too strict. But this dad is strict to a point, like he keeps her in the house and he locks the door, and the house is like in the middle of the woods, so it's like a Rapunzel thing going on, right? And her name is Vierge Marie, and this is it's a comic movie. And the ending is ridiculous, right? And what I love about the ending and what's going on in the movie is, in most Haitian comedies, you see the dad is strict, right? He's strict. There's many scenes where you see a dad in certain comic movies, when he doesn't want the suitor to come near his daughter, he'll start running after the suitor with a machete, right? So in this film, he runs after Kenny with a machete multiple times, right? He's like, "I want you to stay away from my daughter. I want you to stay away from my house," right? And to show you what I mean, if you come near my house, I'm gonna hack your neck off, right? So there have been many movies that use this strictness of the father, and like I remember L'Anglais Chat, there was a point in the movie that I told you that was about Romeo and Juliet, that was based on Romeo and Juliet, because L'Anglais Chat has many skits, right? So in the movie that I told you about Romeo and Juliet, there's a clip where it shows the guy running down the hill, and L'Anglais Chat did not approve of their relationship, right? So he ran down the guy, the suitors. You'll see a scene in that movie, in that portion, in that skit, that episode, where he's just running down the hill after the guy with a machete, because he doesn't want, like, most parents, especially dads to their daughter, they don't want to let their daughters go, right? They have them on lockdown, right? They don't want, like most fathers, They don't want to let they don't want to believe. Like I see this, right? Usually if like parents with their sons, they're a little bit more relaxed, right? They're a lot more relaxed with their sons. But if it's their daughter, it's like they want to keep the daughter on lockdown, right? They don't want to think that the daughter is ever gonna grow up, right? And I see this all the time, especially in my family, in certain families. Like they'll let the sons can do whatever they want, right? But if it's the daughter, they'll be like, no, she can't do this. She can't go out certain times of night because they're overprotective over their daughters, right? And I want to say one more point before I go. One more point is, I don't know if guys get offended when fathers do this, right? When parents do this. Like I remember one time when I was in high school, and I was in like I think I was in chemistry class or a living environment, something like that. And I remember one of my teachers, I think his name is like Mr. Pahalin. Mr. Pahalin was talking about this girl getting raped. And then one of the kids, he said something about, oh, I don't like that. And he's like, what don't you like? He's like, well, I don't like how only girls could be raped. So I was like, I was thinking to myself, what's so good about a girl being raped, right? So he's like, oh, I don't like that. That's not fair. How come it's everything is they get raped, right? So I'm thinking to myself, what does he mean? Oh, everything is they get raped. So he explained it to himself. He explained himself, and I'm like, what he's saying is so true. So what he said is, I don't like it when girls are only seen as precious, right? That's what he was wanting to say. That only girls could be raped, only girls could be seen as beautiful. Well, guys could be seen as handsome. Like when people refer to women, it's like women are precious, they're diamonds, they're jewels, and sons, it's like they could do anything. They're trash. Well, they're not trash. They don't give them the same precious, like this precious type of, like they don't give them the same value that girls.